Welcome back, YouTubers. Thanks for stopping by. It's Coach LeBlanc in China. Many experts wonder why. Why is the system working so well in China? For 40 plus years. More than 10% growth year on year. Well, let me give you my layman's terms insight into what makes it tick. Why is it so successful? Why is the China system working so well? Got me coffee? Let's go for the drive. I'll tell you the story. Now, I'm not here to try to knock down or challenge democracy, but I'd like to give more Westerners an insight into how it works. What's the reality in China? What's different here? The US will lead you with all sorts of shock statements of awe and fear and terror from the communist, overhanding, terrifying, controlling government, communist party. Well, they ain't so scary. They're just a big group of engineers working on a project. Today I'll shed some light on how the CCP makes shit happen. And my God, do they make shit happen. I'm not going to rattle through too many of the stats. You guys know most of it. 800 million plus pulled out of poverty. 40,000 kilometers of high-speed rail infrastructure. The biggest ever investments in EVs, biggest ever investments in solar technology. Hundreds of thousands of square kilometers of arid land, desert, turned into a forest. The CCP achieved all this and more, and there's so much more to come. You just watch it happen. In China, as you can imagine, it's not governed like you would in the West. The West is run by politicians. China is run by engineers and scientists. Much more like you would a large corporation like Apple. You all know Apple. Apple, very large, very successful corporation with very, very clear directives, plans, objectives, targets, communicated from the top right down to the bottom. Does it work? Absolutely. And they have long-term plans just like China does. When you look at the makeup of the CCP, it has evolved dramatically in the last 40 years. Just from the nature of performance. Every sector, every province, every district, sub-district has a target, an objective set by the CCP. These targets have got strict control, performance measures and criteria that's followed. And if you don't follow them, if you don't succeed, you don't get promoted and you get left out. So what do you think's happened over the last 40 years? Most of the successful people have been engineers. Most of the ones very successful have been engineers, scientists, mathematicians in the CCP who are delivering on their project objectives year on year. These are the guys that get promoted. These are the guys that end up running the provinces and setting the next 5-year plan. Can you imagine the evolution of the CCP? It is getting more and more and more every year, stacked up with more and more project managers and engineers than politicians. So You see the difference? You're talking project managers, project engineers, very skilled engineers, structuring, calculating on facts, on data, performance measures, setting targets, setting criteria, and implementing the plan. Very different to politicians in the West trying to make the voters happy and then using smokes and mirrors and lots of money to advertise their way into politics. Very different. Most of the good corporations, even in the West, in the US, Google, Apple, Tesla. What do you notice about the leadership? Most of the leadership are engineers, very structured in their approach, very focused in their approach, very measured, very calculated. The CCP is becoming more and more and more like a corporation. And in probably a simple terms, all the people here in China, they're like employees of the system. There's opportunities created at every level of the economy by these projects, by these businesses within the CCP as the large corporation. Communication is incredible here in the corporate objectives for the CCP. The overall objective of the CCP, what they want to achieve. It's time defined. It's got dates. It's got measurables. It's clearly mapped out, and it's monitored by a very large group of people who are tracking and reporting against these targets, just like in a good corporation. Like any good corporation, the CCP, they learn from their mistakes, and they are changing course and tacking to ultimately reach their objective and complete the project. The project they all agree in their annual meetings. New laws and rules are passed every year, which are adjusting and manipulating the targets and the method to get to the targets, to ensure people work within certain guidelines to achieve the project. That's how you install thousands and thousands and thousands of kilometres of high-speed rail very efficiently. You get engineers to get the job done. You might see some of the big grand plans in China, where now they're going to join up, because big cities like Beijing, Tianjin, and several other surrounding cities to make a mega city. And they're doing the same thing, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Hong Kong, make another mega city. Because they see long term, they need that infrastructure, they need those big cities to work together as part of the grand project to make them more efficient, more effective. And the cities become like departments in the organization, where in organization you're restructuring your organization all the time. As the outside environment changes, your customer focus becomes redirected from competition. You change the business. Your business model evolves, as does CCP and their business model and their China plans. So they are tracking their progress to their ultimate goals. Their ultimate goals are not world domination. They're not going to come and invade your homes in Australia or America or UK or Canada. They're just going to create more opportunity for you to sell your stuff to China. Couldn't believe recently I see the Morrison government making a big issue, big statement. Absolutely pulling out of any Belt and Road initiative or involvement or association with. They want to cut themselves off and isolate themselves, decouple themselves to some extent, as people say. Well, just like a lot of people want to gravitate to someone like Apple, if you work around, live around, shop around a company like Apple with high quality products, quality vision, quality future, you'll prosper. There'll be jobs off it. Lifestyle will improve. So I think people need to think about this. Think about how the CCP and the China is working together in the large China corporation. They're not being handled. They're not being managed. They're not being manipulated. They're being guided as Apple guides their employees. You need to start thinking China as more, they're together. China government now has one of the highest public popularity approval ratings in the world. Well over 80% of Chinese are proud of their government, are happy with their government, and support their government because their government is year on year developing and delivering more opportunity for everybody in a systematic, engineered, controlled, step-by-step fashion. Always looking at the long-term project plan. They work together. Like any good project, you need to work together. And all you project managers out there, you will understand this. You understand this so well. The biggest issue you're trying to deliver on any project, in any business, is getting people aligned to the goals and objectives and targets and dates and timelines of the project. This is something China is learning to do very, very well. I don't say the Western governments need to watch what China's doing and learn from China. But I tell you what, there's a lot of corporations could, in the West, learn from what China government does and how they manage themselves and manage the economy and manage the growth and implement the project plan. All right, that's just my bent perspective, my simple view on how things work here. I've got some relatives, extended relatives that have been in the government for 40 years here in China. I've had lots of discussions with them, lots of discussions with local people. I have a pretty good feeling of how Chinese feel about everything here. And this is not me in my dream. This is me, an observer, watching things happen here. And I continually am amazed. Still today, amazed when I see some new infrastructure projects rolled out in incredible record time And sometimes you look at these projects and some huge bridge shooting over buildings and then wiping out half a small town. You go back there 6 months later and you realize what the plan is. You can see where it connects. The Chinese have got so used to this. They see this infrastructure going on and they think, yep, based on what we've seen in the past, there must be a plan. They don't even question it. Chinese are so confident about what the Chinese government is doing with these massive infrastructure projects that are enabling the businesses to work together. They're enabling fast travel across China, economical travel across China, connecting businesses to people and people to businesses, making life here more efficient, more effective every day. All right, hope you enjoyed the trip. I'm going to finish my coffee. It's almost cold now. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe. Check out some of my other videos here and catch you in the next one.